It's been called a shabby little shocker. Its seemingly facile storyline has attracted all manner of critical abuse. But few operas have kept audiences in thrall like this one. Giacomo Puccini's Tosca. Tosca is the story of a great diva, as impulsive as she is politically naive. Add to this her jealousy, and you have a recipe for disaster. It's also an evocative portrait of a great city, Rome. Like many great stories, Tosca has its basis in real characters and real events. Puccini, often using deceptively simple means, weaves a musical tapestry that offers highly charged entertainment that keeps audiences on the edge of their seats and, most importantly, keeps them wanting more. Ever since its premiere in Rome in 1900, Tosca has rarely been off a stage somewhere in the world. That's not surprising, because the opera seems to have everything audiences want: passion, violence, and tragedy. Pure melodrama. Giacomo Puccini was the last in a line of great Italian opera composers. With his talent for combining music with tightly wrought drama, he took Italian opera into the 20th century. Puccini had already composed Manon Lescaut and La Bohème, but it was Tosca which saw him in full command of his powers, cementing his reputation. It also made him a very rich man. I'm going to take a closer look at the world behind Tosca and examine what makes Puccini the ultimate dramatist. How he creates character, drives the action, and how he grips the audience, keeping us enthralled. In our production at the Royal Opera House in London, we've assembled a cast of international superstars.
Then we should play it like that, shouldn't we?
In the title role as Floria Tosca, the Romanian soprano Angela Gheorghiu.
The way Puccini wrote music, his lines all the time for the three characters, he all the time put the right sound, the right power, and the right sensibility. With Tosca, he did a masterpiece.
The German tenor Jonas Kaufmann plays the part of Tosca's lover, Mario Cavaradossi.
It's fantastic how Puccini describes the emotions and the soul, if you would call it like that, of a human being. And that was his main target, describe the real feelings of real persons.
Non lo so! Negate d'aver dato cibo. Ego, le vesti, ego, e l'asilo della villa e dell'asse nascosto. Ego, ego.
Bryn, stretch it. The Welsh bass baritone Bryn Terfel plays the chief of police Baron Scarpia, one of opera's truly evil characters.
The role of Scarpia, for me, has that twinge of danger. what do I do? Do I stride in purposefully? Do I have a mean, horrible face? No, it's all in the music. A stillness within the role of Scarpia for me, I think, says a great deal more than giving gestures. It's all through the glint of an evil eye.
But this opera isn't just about the people on stage. The other star is Rome, the eternal city. For Puccini, Rome is as important as any of the characters, using 3 iconic locations and music that somehow captures their essence. He sets the action within the space of a single day, June 17th, 1800. This day has real significance in Italian history, when news reached Rome of the defeat of Napoleon's forces at the Battle of Marengo. Napoleon's aim was to impose a single republic onto the numerous self-governing states that made up the country. What's more, there were some Italians who wanted the same thing. The first character we meet is one of them, a Republican sympathizer on the run and seeking sanctuary in church. This is Sant'Andrea della Valle, one of the great landmarks of the city. 2 popes are buried here. It's one of the largest and most important churches in Rome after St. Peter's. The whole of Act 1 is set here. What could be more theatrical than this vast space and its Baroque splendor? A perfect counterpoint to the lurid and profane goings-on of the plot. It's midday, and into the church scurries Angelotti, who has just escaped from prison. Puccini sets the scene superbly, catapulting us into an atmosphere of extreme tension.
Ah, finalmente! Nel terror mio stolto, vede a ceffi di sbirro in ogni volto. La pila, la colonna, a piede la Madonna mi scrisse mia sorella.
Angelotti's sister has concealed a key to one of the private chapels for him to hide in. It's his escape that is the catalyst for the whole opera. But how do fact and fiction meet here? 8 private chapels line the nave of Sant'Andrea, each dedicated to some of the great aristocratic families connected with the church. But none of them quite fits the description of the Attavanti chapel in Tosca. However, this is the Barberini chapel. It is the only chapel that is separated from the main body of the church by an iron grille. This is more like it. And over here we have another iron grille. This leads to the crypt of the Barberini family. Surely Angelotti would have hidden down there. Angelotti's fear of being caught was a very real concern in Rome at the end of the 18th century. So far, the church had been the main influence ensuring that the city was stable and relatively prosperous. But after the French Revolution, Republican zeal spread. The Pope was eventually forced to flee, and Rome was declared a republic with its own Roman consul. In Tosca, this is the character of Angelotti. But most Romans didn't want a republic, and it collapsed. With the power vacuum, the King of Naples seized control, installing a brutal secret police to keep order. Paranoia and fear stalked the streets. It was in this Rome that we find our hero, the young noble and artist Mario Cavaradossi. Cavaradossi has come to Rome. He's fallen in love with the singer Floria Tosca, and he's a liberal. He's a follower of Bonaparte and the Republican ideas. But we get to know him through this music. A much more romantic music with a stalwart feel, majesty, impetuosity. He unveils the painting. Love music. Like most of Puccini's operas, Tosca is named after a strong but ultimately tragic heroine. Tosca's introduction. She's a very religious character, full of fervor and intensity in everything she does, passionate, warm, devoted, and in love. But of course, what that means, we also get to know the other part of her, which is this. And listen, if you can guess what the emotion is. Did you hear those tremolos? One of the main engines of all Italian music is the tremolo to create atmosphere. But what is it describing? Well, it's describing, of course, jealousy. This is the fatal flaw. She is incredibly jealous. She's a diva. She's a star in Rome. So perhaps she's allowed all these foibles, but in the story, this jealousy will destroy her in the end. The plot is tightly wound, and every element is significant. Cavaradossi has used a girl he saw in the church as the model for his painting. But when Tosca sees the painting, she flies into a jealous rage, falsely suspecting him of taking a rival lover. This girl was Angelotti's sister, who, unknown to them, had left a key and women's clothes to help her brothers escape.
Well, Cavaradossi loves her so much and loves everything, including her jealousy, including her outbreaks. It's just he cannot control. It's just there. Is so much enough, and that is also very essential, actually, for the whole action and for the outcome of the second and third act.
The man who exploits Tosca's jealousy is Scarpia. And as far as statements of intent go, few could be deemed as powerful as the very first chords of the opera. Scarpia's theme, dominating all that follows. But what is this music? For me, it conjures up the titanic majesty of Rome, the power of the church, and Baron Scarpia's stranglehold on political society in Rome. Scarpia is drawn from a number of real-life characters. One of the most significant is a man called Gherardo Curci, a bandit known as Sciarpa, meaning scarf or sash after an item of paramilitary clothing. He was one of the most murderous of the anti-republicans and was made a baron by the King of Naples in 1800. Described as a crude figure who exuded loutish cunning and religious hypocrisy, he was merciless, working around the fringes of the law.
Certainly, Scarpia is frightening. There are certain colors that you need for the role of Scarpia.
But does the music, it draws something out of you. It makes you want to go over the top, doesn't it?
Definitely. Any sinister, any misfit, any malcontent on the stage tends to make you both sing at a different pace that you're used to, and maybe your persona on the stage becomes more active and more terrifying, more sinister. He has to have an air of invincibility. You know, he's aristocratic as well. So everything falls into place within the danger of this role.
Scarpia doesn't actually appear until towards the end of the first act, but Puccini has already well established his presence. We've heard his theme, but we want to meet him. Where is he? Well, Cavaradossi, the painter, introduces him as a bigot, a satire, a confessor and executioner at the same time. And he says these over the theme, repeated over and over again. When he says confessor and executioner, listen how it changes. Now we are ready to meet the real Scarpia. Cavaradossi hides Angelotti at his villa. Meanwhile, news of Napoleon's defeat at Marengo has reached Rome, and a Te Deum is to be sung in celebration. Puccini sets the scene for one of the most impressive entrances in all opera. He allows the innocent joy of choir boys to reach its peak, and only then kills it stone dead with Scarpia's arrival. It's a fabulous theatrical device to reinforce his terrifying persona.
Eccellenza, il gran giubilo, apprestate per il Te Deum.
The first act, of course, he has this wonderful introduction. Then, very cleverly, but with authority, questions the different people on the stage.
Ora te, pesa le tue risposte, un prigionier di Stato, fuggì pur ora da Castel Sant'Angelo. Sei rifugiato qui!
There's nothing much you have to do to gauge a character. It's all there in the music. Every drive, every step forward, every color of a phrase.
But when Tosca arrives looking for Cavaradossi, the music describes a surprisingly different side to Scarpia's character. Totally unexpected, out of the blue comes this amazingly insinuating but gentle singing from you, being the Grand Seigneur. and eliciting a color from you that is, where does that come from, you know? Here she goes, right on the bell. Remember, this whole scene is taking part in the church.
Tosca divina la mano mia, la vostra aspetta, piccola manina, non per galanteria, ma per offrirvi l'acqua benedetta.
So you see how Scarpia's music is constantly changing, constantly impulsive, always surprising us.
E arnese di pittore questo.
Scarpia's insinuating words fire Tosca's jealousy so that she'll lead him to Cavaradossi and Angelotti.
Qualcun venne certo a spurbar gli amanti, ed essa nel fuggir perderne.
Scarpia now sees a way to fulfill his own lust for Tosca, and Puccini uses an extraordinary theatrical device to portray this. Act 1 climaxes with the monumental Te Deum, a high hymn of thanksgiving to God, which is sung to celebrate the victory at Marengo. Having come from generations of church composers, Puccini was no stranger to the power of ritual. I went to the heart of Catholic Rome, to St. Peter's Basilica itself, to find out about the importance of the Te Deum. Massimo, what function does the Te Deum have in the liturgy?
Il Te Deum è un inno di ringraziamento, per cui si canta in specifici momenti della liturgia e non è una cosa che si fa ordinariamente, ma in specifici momenti, come ad esempio i vespri dell'ultimo dell'anno, per ringraziare dell'anno passato.
Puccini certainly knew what he was doing. I had a chance to hear the famous Sistine Chapel Choir sing a specifically Roman Te Deum.
Esiste una melodia caratterizzante, il Te Deum che si canta a Roma è quella che Puccini astutamente ha preso e ha inserito nella Tosca e continua a essere cantata. Alle celebrazioni col Papa, noi con la Cappella Sistina cantiamo la melodia del Te Deum romano.
Aware of all the elements that could be used to maximum effect, Puccini employed the Roman Te Deum as one part of a vast ecclesiastical sound world to create an unholy marriage between the sacred and the profane. It's an intensely dramatic way of underlining Scarpia as someone who is utterly immoral. A feature of Puccini's writing for Scarpia is that he's the only character who sings asides to the audience, revealing his innermost thoughts. Offsetting Scarpia's words, Puccini uses all the tricks at his disposal. Underpinning it all, the ritual tolling of bells. This is oppressive, repetitive music that starts quietly and builds layer by layer. The low strings, the woodwinds, the organ, cannons from off stage.
Della tua gelosia
softly building.
Quanta promessa nel tuo pronto sospetto. They lustful day.
Yes, and it builds and builds, weaving and
Nel
weaving.
tuo cuore s'annida scarpia.
Yeah, the way you say your name, always, and hers together. Enjoy them both.
Factus.
Fabulous. Now a new effect, the rhythmic muttering of devout voices. Like Iago in Verdi's Otello, he confesses his evil and manipulative nature. In church, he conjures up the image of Angelotti on the scaffold, and at the same time, the image of Tosca in his arms. It's amazing. You've got the setting, the church, the service that's going on, and you lusting. It's almost masturbatory. I mean, it's frightening that this could happen. And this juxtaposition of church and lust, this is what the whole piece is about, actually. With the climax of the Te Deum, the stage is set for the bloody and gruesome events that inevitably follow. But like so many of his operas, Puccini found inspiration from someone else's work. Were it not for Puccini, the name Victorien Sardou would be just a historical footnote. In the late 19th century, Sardou was one of the most famous playwrights alive, having 70 plays to his name. His masterwork, La Tosca. In 1889, Puccini had seen La Tosca twice, and both times starring the greatest actress of the day, the flamboyant and charismatic Sarah Bernhardt. Tosca had everything Puccini wanted. Intensely dramatic situations, violent and raw, that you could easily get a handle on, and crucially, at its heart, a heroine, a passionate, fiery, yet ultimately tragic heroine. This was the clincher. It fired Puccini's imagination, and he set out to reduce Sardou's 5 plot-heavy acts to a lean, finely honed 3. For this, his publisher Ricordi assembled the dream team behind Puccini's most recent success, La Bohème, the librettists Luigi Illica and Giuseppe Giacosa. Between them, they did such a good job that Sardou himself declared that the libretto was dramatically superior to the play. And Puccini certainly ratchets up the drama in Act 2, which is set in one of Italy's finest Renaissance buildings, the Palazzo Farnese. Now the French embassy in Rome, it was once home to popes, queens, and briefly the King of Naples. The perfect setting for Scarpia's headquarters. Astonishing. I've conducted Tosca so many times, but to actually be in the room where the heart of the opera takes place is for me it's an amazing moment, actually. The walls are covered by these stunning Florentine frescoes celebrating the Farnese family's fidelity towards the church. How ironic it is that this should be where Scarpia conducts his business.
Time has passed, and it's now later in the evening of the same day. The mood has changed too. Now it is darker, almost claustrophobic.
One of Puccini's great skills is that he crafts the action and the music so very precisely. There's a tremendous economy to his writing. It's almost lean. Everything happens just when it's supposed to happen.
Having hidden Angelotti, Cavaradossi tells Tosca everything before Scarpia's henchmen get their hands on him. Puccini then uses the sound of a concert given by Tosca off stage to heighten the tension on stage.
Fai violenza, cavalier, vi piaccia accomodarvi. O saper sedete, aspetto.
It's often been said that Puccini was the creator of what would become the cinematographic soundtrack. And I think theatricality in all senses is enhanced by music that is so descriptive and so telling that it reaches the audience with an immediacy that is palpable. Listen to this music, for instance, as Cavaradossi is brought to the torture chamber.
Having summoned Tosca, Scarpia hopes the torture of Cavaradossi will force her to reveal Angelotti's hiding place.
Listen to the dark colors. You can imagine the place already. From the sound of the celli and the violas. Using the open strings to give that bite and snarl. What could be more filmic than that? And what a suggestive, almost Sibelian darkness in this music.
In so many respects, Tosca anticipates the world of film, and at 2 hours, it runs just like a film. Many of the ideas that Puccini employs can be found in the music of film composers today. I went to the world-famous Cinecittà film studios in Rome to meet Ennio Morricone, composer of the iconic score to The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and a great Puccini fan.
Sei d'accordo che forse lui sarebbe stato forse il più grande compositore per film che ci...
penso, io l'ho sempre...
È talmente suggestivo la sua musica.
Io l'ho sempre pensato. Sono rimasto sempre molto impressionato della maniera di come Puccini raggiunge il massimo del rendimento drammaturgico con la semplicità della scrittura. Mi fa pensare a questa contrapposizione dell'interiorità del personaggio con la realtà della scena. Quindi questo è quello che la musica vuol significare in generale nel cinema, che la musica deve dire quello che non si dice e quello che non si vede. E qua c'è questa possibilità, questa doppiezza.
Nowhere does this have more impact than in the scene where Puccini depicts Tosca's torment, whilst in a room off stage, Cavaradossi is being brutally tortured.
Puccini takes this torture music now and enhances it. As Scarpia is describing Cavaradossi with a rim around his head with nails in it that will be tightened, so that there will be blood spatter, so he talks and gives the information. Listen to the blood spatter of the trumpets in this musical enhancement. Tell me where Angelotti is! In agony, brings her to the top C. Certainly satisfies our animal instincts, this music of a rare violence. In fact, Herbert von Karajan said it helps once a year for a conductor to conduct Tosca, to let all his baser instincts be released, if you like. Eventually, it's too much for Tosca, and she gives away Angelotti's hiding place.
Sometimes it's good not to know some information.
Yeah. Well, he's a master at that. Scarpia
It is
a master at knowing how to actually put pressure on you. And in fact, it works. You do spill the information.
Yes, I spill. Oh.
And this
is. I don't.
It's a betrayal.
Yes, it is. You know, in Tosca, I never liked this. When I saw for the first time, I was so sad. No, don't. No, you must not. How could you?
Yeah.
But she did because he knew it, how to do it, how to take the information from her. It's impossible not to understand the feeling we have as an opera singer. This is the first role we play ourselves. I mean, I play myself in a way.
The sheer emotional force of the role and the turmoil Tosca goes through demands of the singer her full range of interpretive powers. Since its premiere, the role of Tosca has become one of the iconic operatic characters, one that almost defines a singer's greatness. One of the legendary Toscas was the brilliant and notoriously temperamental Maria Callas. With her own turbulent and colorful life, she almost created the image of the great diva. Lover of millionaires and famous for her fiery temper, she ended up deserted and heartbroken. But behind the public figure lay a fastidious and extremely hard-working professional, famous for her attention to the finest detail, for leaving no stone unturned in the pursuit to find the heart of a role. Here she is with the great baritone Tito Gobbi as Scarpia in a 1964 performance from Covent Garden. Cavaradossi is condemned to death, but Scarpia gives Tosca a terrible choice: submit to his sexual advances, and Cavaradossi will live. Out of this desperate situation emerges one of Puccini's most moving arias for soprano. Curiously, this now famous aria, Vissi d'arte, wasn't even planned to be in the opera. But during rehearsals for the premiere, the soprano singing Tosca, Chariclea Darclea, a Romanian like Angela, had a bit of a diva moment herself.
When Chariclea Darclea starts singing the role, Chariclea says, "Maestro, I have no aria, and it's me, Tosca." And thanks to her, as I always said, and because I'm proud about this, because she's a Romanian soprano, finally he composed Vissi d'arte, Vissi d'amore.
Initially, Puccini wasn't convinced, as he feared it would slow down the action. But there's no doubt that it adds to the drama. A fervent yet disillusioned prayer before fate strikes.
Grazie Angela, brava.
Scarpia agrees to issue a safe conduct pass, providing Cavaradossi goes through the pretense of a mock execution, and Tosca satisfies his lust.
Everything is very important within the storytelling. This is a genius of Puccini in a way that he's given you such dramatic intensity. So it has everything, and even the death has to be entertaining for people.
By letting the action play in real time, Puccini yet again brilliantly strings out the game of cat and mouse to heighten the nervous tension. How will Tosca resolve this dilemma? And there in the music is Tosca's answer. And it's something this great diva would never have dreamed herself capable of, even an hour earlier.
Tosca, finalmente mia! Maledetta!
Questo è il braccio di Tosca!
Aiutami! Soccorso! Soccorso! Aiuto!
Mi soffoca il sangue! Muori, dannato, muori! Muori! Muori!
It's before dawn the following morning, and I've come to the Castel Sant'Angelo, where the third act of Tosca is set, and where Cavaradossi is awaiting execution. Tosca eventually makes her way here, with the pass securing the safe conduct for her and her lover. From these ramparts, you really get a sense of the geography of the city and how it fits in with the opera.
Just over my shoulder is the Sant'Andrea della Valle church, where Act 1 takes place. And just hidden behind there is the Farnese Palace of Act 2. So the distances are very, very short, actually. It's a very tight feel. You can imagine Tosca running here after she has murdered Scarpia.
The Castel Sant'Angelo is one of Rome's most imposing landmarks. Once home to the Papal Guard and their prisoners, for centuries it has symbolized a fusion of church and state. The dawn-breaking music at the beginning of Act 3 is where Puccini really establishes Rome as its own character in the opera. What he does is to create yet another cinematic effect, a musical soundscape that vividly captures its majesty and atmosphere.
Underpinning a sighing melody is the sound of bells, but myriad bells, the sound of Roman bells sounding the matins. It's alleged he came here to hear for himself how this would have sounded.
To recreate the sense of perspective, Puccini was very particular with his requirements.
To realize Puccini's intentions, we set up 4 percussion players at the back of the stage in different positions, near and far, and they have different pitched bells. And the first bell, the B natural here, is marked lontanissimo, very far away. This next bell is a little closer, meno lontano. Now, this bell, vicino, is marked near. It was considered quite unusual and strange, the actual sounds of the city superimposed onto music. What was this? And at the time it was quite controversial. But what a stunning effect.
Puccini was meticulous in researching the actual pitches of the bells he heard, even enlisting the help of a religious music expert who found out that the great bell of St. Peter's, the Er Campanone, produced just the sound he needed. Day finds Cavaradossi being led from his cell to face the firing squad. The music now prepares us for perhaps the opera's most celebrated aria.
In setting up Cavaradossi's aria E lucevan le stelle, an aria which is about memories of the good times, but also the feeling of impending doom, his impending death, Puccini creates a very, very special pathos here, using 4 cellos. This is a tradition to create intimacy of expression, already used by Verdi in Otello, at the beginning of William Tell of Rossini. So it's an Italian form of creating something new and special. Using the love music.
It's perfectly set up by Puccini. It's always this question, how can you manage to be in this mood? To really be in this frustrating, but at the same time still deeply loving moment of love and regret. The answer is very simple, just listen to the music.
This leads into a remarkable new theme.
The aria is written perfectly. That's the secret. I mean, that's the magic that lies between the lines. He guides you exactly to the right spot.
Cavaradossi is remembering a night of love with Tosca, and what's striking is that the melody is in the orchestra. The words are almost spoken.
Then there's this moment in the aria, which I find always very beautiful, because then he drops his mask of heroism, and you suddenly reveal a normal human being that is afraid of death.
Tosca arrives with Scarpia's safe conduct pass and shows it to Cavaradossi. But the precise moment when he realizes that he won't escape alive has always been a source of debate and interpretation. Something we discussed in rehearsals.
When she's really, I mean, è sicuramente da un certo punto, da quel punto che tu dici sarà per
Sì, per finta.
Da quel momento è sicuro
Solo in quel
che...
momento capisci? Io dico che prima, no?
No, capisco.
Per me, scusami.
There's a discussion going on about how much Cavaradossi knows about what's really going to happen. And Jonas is communicating to Angela here that at the moment she says there's going to be a simulated execution, he realizes, he knows. Scarpia would never agree to something like this. The oppression of his regime, the manipulation, would never work. And somehow to humor her, he goes along with it. He goes along with her hope.
almost to the very end, Tosca believes that it's all just play acting.
Il mio Mario! Muori! Ecco la testa!
Strangely, when Tosca premiered in Rome in 1900, real-life events echoed the opera's historical setting. The economic situation in Italy was bad. Anarchist groups flourished, and there'd been riots in the north and south. It was a pretty tense time. The unrest caused the premiere to be postponed by a day, and on the first night there was a rumor of a bomb scare. But it turned out to be a false alarm, and the performance went ahead.
Mario! Mario!
The moment when I see the blood, I realized I had no other solution than to kill myself. I had no time to think. It was just an instinct.
Tosca! Pagherai vendicare la sua vita! Scorpio! Avanti,
The public loved it. Several numbers were encored, and there was a rapturous ovation for Puccini himself at the final curtain. With Tosca, Puccini's reputation as the Italian opera composer was secure. Over the next quarter century, the masterpieces continued to flow. Operas like Madama Butterfly and Turandot joined Tosca as worldwide hits.
Puccini's airtight musical dramas, still dominated though by his astonishing melodic invention, established the template for what makes a successful opera. I love conducting this music, and I love this city, Rome.
A Christmas night treat for you here on BBC HD tomorrow as Darcy Bussell dances Hollywood at 6:30. Next though, the whole thing in full, the Royal Opera House's production of Tosca in just a few moments.